Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Live Well, Be Well, Do Good show. I'm your host, Morgan Sheets, and today I have the lovely Jana O joining us.
Hi.
Jana O is an amazing Pinterest strategist that helps online coaches and online business providers automate their client attraction. And I am so excited to have her with us today because we all want a more leveraged and automated marketing approach so we can serve our clients.
Yeah. So great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hey, you're so welcome. So tell me, Jana, how did you get into Pinterest marketing in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started working in online business about 4 years ago, probably a little more than that now because I've been saying that for a bit. And I had a background in corporate HR and in marketing. I have a degree in marketing. And then I was working in marketing and sales positions down here in South Florida after I had relocated here to be closer to family. And things kind of changed in like my life, and I got remarried, and I really wanted to have a job, if you will, a job. At that time, I thought it was going to be a job that was like location independent and also, somewhat more time freedom too. But mostly I was motivated by being able to work from anywhere and not have to be in one particular place to be able to, do the work and make the money. So I decided to start, an online marketing business. And in the beginning, I was really doing pretty much like virtual assistant level work for marketing support for different people. And, pretty quickly I figured out who I wanted to work for and with and who I didn't. Right. And one of the first clients that I had that was really squarely in what I now consider my ideal audience was a coach, an online coach and a course creator. And she's also to some degree like a high level service provider too. And when I got behind the scenes in her business, I was just really, really surprised to learn that the majority of her website traffic, so many of her leads, so many of her opt-ins to her lead magnet, many of her clients, many of her students were coming from Pinterest marketing. She was really bringing in and attracting this huge audience from Pinterest. And not only were they just like any old audience, but they were people who were like already really interested in the things that she was helping with and teaching about through her free offers and her paid offers. And so I just basically, after I picked my jaw up off the floor, when I like double checked the numbers, to be like, really, is this true? I just really went all in on the platform, learned all about it, took on some additional Pinterest clients that were also coaches, course creators, in that niche, those infopreneur kind of niches. Yeah. And the rest is kind of history. I've now worked with dozens and dozens of clients one-to-one doing done-for-you setups and intensives where we roll up our sleeves together and set it up together in an intensive kind of situation, like a 2.5 hour, just working session. And I also have a course where I teach that method as well. So, so that's just kind of like how I fell into it and how I discovered it. And then I just loved it for all the things that it brings to the table that is a lot of those things are different than what social media can do for you. So that's really kind of how I found it and why I love it. So
thanks for sharing. I feel like I'm picturing like one of those as seen on TV, like magical aha, like
totally
lights flashing everywhere kind of moments as you experience the power of Pinterest without
exactly the magic washed over me. Yeah, like Cinderella style.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to have you share a little bit more of that kind of results with us. I mean, the last thing you touched on is how, a lot of online service providers and coaches. Now, I think I'm in the health and wellness space. I know you serve a lot of health and wellness providers, especially those, we're taught in marketing, you got to show up, you got to deliver value, you got to attract your clients. But so many service providers are just so burned out and just getting wildly depleted. Yeah. So I'm sure they're listening and going, yeah, that sounds really nice, but I don't know. It's one more thing new to learn. So
totally.
Tell us some of these results on the back end that you've helped your clients achieve so that people can really see the kind of results they can get through the work you do.
Absolutely. There are so many things I could share about Pinterest, but really the probably most relevant for this particular part of the conversation is just that it is not social media. And so for various reasons, and I can kind of help connect the dots for you in another conversation here, but it's much more low maintenance. It's not something that you have to be doing every day. It's not a strategy that requires any engagement. So Pinterest being a search engine, it's all about bringing new people into your audience who are already looking for, literally like at that moment and recently, searching for the things that you teach about through your content, both your free offers and your paid offers. So it's really about bringing new people in, but the nurturing doesn't really happen on Pinterest because, again, it's not social media. People aren't going there to connect with individuals and people and to really make connections or even really talk to people. Like people go on there for ideas and inspiration, very different than social media. So they're open to new ideas. They're looking for what you help with and offer, which we'll talk about in a minute. But because of the nature of how it works, like how it attracts clients and what you need to do, there's a lot you don't need to do on Pinterest. And I teach about that as well, because I really teach like a minimum viable strategy that works. So I teach my clients and students to sit down once per month for about 4 to 6 hours. And a lot of my students have gotten it down to like 3 hours, where you do all your Pinterest things and then you set it and you forget it until the next month. So
and forget it. I love that.
I know. Set it and forget it. And there's a little controversy sometimes over that, but I truly think Pinterest, it is a set it and forget it platform in the sense that you do your work for the month and then you walk away, but you do come back 30 days later and do it again. So it's not like you literally can set it and then never come back. Right. But it's so different than social media. So I do hear people often say like, well, I just can't think about even like starting a new platform, let alone mastering a new platform. And I totally understand that. But the kinds of results that you can see if you set it up strategically and then commit to a small amount of work every month. And by the way, you can also delegate, that small amount of work. It's quite easily delegatable once you have the strategy in place and you know your strategy. The results really, like, they vary a lot, which is kind of neat, I think, because basically, when people ask me, okay, so like, what kinds of results will I see or can I see? I kind of think about like two ends of the spectrum. So I have one client who's a health coach. She specializes in hormone health in particular. She has a membership program. She's been on Pinterest for probably, I want to say, about 1.5 years or so. And after the first 9 months or so, she was getting such amazing results that she stopped running her Facebook ads altogether. And that was one of the goals she had when she got on Pinterest, actually, was to be less dependent on her Facebook ads because they weren't really as reliable as they had been for her in the past. She, in that, I think it was the first quarter of 2019, what is it now? It's 2021. So it was the first quarter of 2020. She completely stopped her Facebook ads. She brought in about 8,000 and change. It was like maybe 8,400 brand new leads from Pinterest. So this is people who came over to her content and opted into her freebies and became.
That was in that 9-month span, you said, right? So 8,400 new leads in 9 months or so.
That actually, so she had been on Pinterest already for about 9 months and was already, she was already starting to see results and leads coming in. But then when at the 9-month mark, it was about January 1st. And we measured her results from January through April. Is that quarter one? No, March of 2020. And she brought in about 8,000 leads just during that 3-month period. And
that would be a game changer for so many people.
And it was for her because she literally saved $75,000 in Facebook ads because she didn't spend that money on the ads. And she filled her entire membership program for the entire year with that set of leads, essentially. So for her, the results were spectacular. And that is what's possible. And that's amazing. And then I also have a student who's an online dating coach. And she gets so in order to get about 8,000 leads in that quarter, Melissa probably had to bring in, maybe 1.5 that in terms of clicks over from Pinterest to her content and her opt-ins. So she was getting thousands of clicks every single month from Pinterest to her website, and she still is. But then Andi, on the other hand, who's an online dating coach who I worked with, she gets she gets probably a couple of hundred every month of people clicking over to her website from Pinterest. Some of those become leads. I'm not quite as familiar with her conversion rates as I am with Melissa's. But those people, she loves that because her VA does 1 hour of Pinterest work a month. A week, 1 hour a week. They do it weekly. And it's just this steady stream of people coming to her site. Some of them buy her mini products. Some of them opt in. And she just really signs, I think at this point she's kind of, I haven't talked to her too recently, so I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I don't want to say she's not looking for clients anymore, because I think she is, but she's not signing clients at the volume level right now that Melissa is, because she does one-to-one work, whereas Melissa does like a group program and like a membership. So for her, she loves those results. She gets more traffic to her website, which is very conversion friendly, by the way, from Pinterest than she gets from any other social platform. And for her, it's working. It's bringing in leads. And occasionally one of those leads becomes a one-to-one client. Some of them buy her products. And so for her, the investment is well worth it. But her results aren't as like jaw-dropping, you know what I mean, as Melissa's, obviously. So you can kind of, it runs the gamut, really, as far as what you will see. And some of it has to do with what you put into it and the amount of time and the amount of effort. Also, some of it has to do with your funnels and your particular goals and what you are trying to accomplish and what your goals are with your Pinterest traffic. But yeah, those are like two sort of ends of the spectrum in terms of like what's possible when it comes to getting, great results from the platform. So hopefully that helps.
I think those are beautiful examples. I mean, especially since we had those two different types of providers, you shared also very well what people need to supplement using Pinterest as a strategy.
Yeah.
So I know there's probably a lot of people listening right now. They're like, okay, I'm sold. Like, what do I need to do to take this next step? And I believe you have kind of like a 5-minute tool that people can use to see if their clients are on Pinterest looking for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I always recommend when someone says to me, well, yeah, okay, it sounds great, but are my people really looking for me on Pinterest? And oftentimes that comes from a place where Pinterest has grown a lot. So it's up to about 430 million monthly users now. But a lot of people are still kind of like in the past, and they're thinking that it's all mason jar recipes and weddings, because that's what Pinterest branding was in the beginning and kind of what we still think of it as.
Home decor and fashion.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. And we love it for that. And we certainly still look there for those things. But if you think about, I always recommend to people when they're in that place, because I can tell you all day long that your people are looking for you, right? But you have to kind of see it yourself. So I always suggest that people write down 1 or 2, maybe 3, what I call long tail keywords, if you want to use that technical term, but like phrases that are 2 or 3 words each that they think their ideal person might be searching for on Pinterest. And if you're not a Pinterest user, you can kind of start with Google and think about what people might Google when you want them to find you. Although the search intent is a little bit different for Pinterest and Google. So that's kind of another story. And then just to search those items on those phrases on Pinterest and see what comes up in the predictive text and see what is out there as far as content in those categories as well. So can I use you, Morgan, as like a guinea pig? Would that be okay?
You can definitely do that. And if in the example, if you could kind of, in case there's anyone out there that doesn't really quite understand the predictive text, let's help them walk through the process when you're giving the example.
Am I being too jargony here? Predictive text. So if you're on Google as an example and you start to type something in, like the other night I typed in, how old is the actor that plays Philip? And after that came up on The Crown, right?
So I was going to say about a crown reference.
Yeah, right. So Google already knew what I was going to ask. And the reason Google knew was not that it was reading my mind. It just knew because many, many other people apparently all across the world, right, have Googled that particular phrase. So it was like, yeah, you're probably wondering how old this guy is on The Crown. So that's predictive text. And it's the same on Pinterest. As you start to type things into the search bar, you'll see predictive suggestions come up. And just like on Google, if we know that people are searching for Philip on The Crown and how old he is on Google, if you start to type something like online dating, into the predictive text, an online dating profile examples comes up, or online dating mindset comes up, for instance. Those are the things that you'll know are being searched. So that gives you the validation to know that your thing is being searched by people. And if you don't see your thing come up, it's good information, but it doesn't necessarily mean that people aren't searching for your thing on Pinterest, but you might have to shift your thought process about how they're searching on Pinterest for your thing. So
we try different keywords.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my 5-minute exercise, is to take those 2 or 3 things that are like really important to the content that you create and help people with, and just plug those things. But think about it, like put yourself in the shoes of the person who might be looking for that solution or that help. So try not to use the jargon like I just did with the predictive text. Try to think of those things that you hear your customers saying when they first encounter you, and meet them where they're at. So I'm just wondering if you know what do you have any ideas, Morgan, what those things would be for you? Like what things people search for at the time that you might want them to find your content and what you offer?
The main thing they're looking for is how to increase exposure. So they don't actually look for media as a strategy. More often, if they are, the one term, the long tail keywords that they use, the phrase for that I've found is, what do I need before I pitch the media? Yep. So that's why I use that. And then otherwise, they just want to increase exposure and attract more clients.
Right.
Those are more common keywords.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would pop into Pinterest, start typing some of those things in. If you don't find them, think about, okay, can I simplify this a little bit? Can I put myself in the shoes? Like as an example, increasing exposure. Not sure that would be searched on Pinterest. It could be. That's the goal, the end result they're looking for. But like you said, it might be, pitching the media or pitch templates or like how to be featured on podcasts or, things like that might be where you want to meet people at. So so that's exactly what I recommend people do to see.
Going kind of back to that, like the language, do you find that people are typing different things into Pinterest than they're saying elsewhere?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So typically on Pinterest, people are looking for ideas and inspirations and solutions, whereas on Google, they're usually, and this is just a broad generalization, there's obviously overlap, but so on Google, they'd be looking more for like facts, and specific answers to specific questions. Typically, again, it varies back and forth, but like I wouldn't go to Pinterest and type in how old is the actor that plays Philip on The Crown, but I might go into Pinterest and search. I'm trying to think if I can bring this back to something that would be relevant for our businesses with The Crown, but maybe not. So, but we might search, The Crown jewelry, or, if you were looking for jewelry, but obviously from a business perspective, somebody might search for, let's see if I can think of an example for your area. So I'll go back to my client, the online dating coach. Somebody might be looking online for like online dating apps if they're looking to actually find the right ones for them, or like which online dating app is for people who are in their 50s or something like that. That's probably not something they would look for on Pinterest. They would maybe go on Pinterest to say online dating app ideas or online dating profile examples or something like that. And those happen to be things I know people actually really are searching for around that topic. So that's the difference, really. I don't know if that's the best example, but it's like more fact-oriented versus more inspiration-oriented.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, since Pinterest is visual, I imagine like the more visual cues like templates is, like the profile example like you spoke of, people are going to look for that on Pinterest since it is visual. So there's these visual ideas to help accompany the topic that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm going to throw up on the screen the link to your checklist.
Oh, thanks.
And if you go and share with people, what they can use that to do, and go ahead and go and implement right now.
Yeah, so that's a great next step for anyone who does that little search and goes, oh my gosh, like there are people looking for my thing on Pinterest. I had no idea. I thought it was all mason jars, right? Or if you already know, but you've been kind of putting off getting started. This is a great, it's a quick start checklist, really, where it just walks you through 5 steps to get your profile started and set up strategically. So it's just a really great way to just jump in and do things, but not like waste time, because I find a lot of times people will just jump in and get started on the platform and start trying to approach it like social media. And unfortunately, that ends up being frustrating. It doesn't work well. So then you feel like, oh, Pinterest doesn't work for me. So all of that happens if you don't take a second to do it the right way when you're first getting started, and to really shift your thought process into the idea that people are searching and you want them to find you. And this is a search and discovery platform versus social media. So if you want to get started quickly, but get started in a way that, is the right way and isn't going to like waste your time and frustrate you. This is
make you
where
spend hours and overwhelm trying to figure out the way when you have the way for them right here to go follow.
Exactly. So, you get started in five quick steps, basically. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I'm just going to leave that up there so that people can write it down and reference it. It will also be linked in the live notes so people can click from there as well.
Great.
So I'd love for you to share. We're going to move a little bit into your personal business strategy and just hear from you. I think for me personally, it's just important to bring light to the fact that success is different for every single person, and to give ourselves massive permission to understand what success means. And I know you shared a little bit that, location freedom is important to you, but I'd love to have you share really what holistic success means to you and how you help support yourself to create that and bring it to life in your business and in your routines.
Yeah. So I think the location freedom was initially really important, and it still is, although we're recording this during the 2020 to 2021 pandemic. So that location freedom thing starts to feel a little bit like, what happened to that, right? But I think time freedom also comes into it a lot. And one of the things that I really try not to take for granted is the idea that, I have no commute now because I work from home primarily, right? Unless I'm happen to be working from the road when it's not pandemic time. And I can work with my own energy, and I can do the things that I want to when I want to do them and when they feel fun and exciting for me. And if I wake up and I want to go to the beach today, I can do that as long as I have a plan for taking what I was going to do today and putting it, on a future day when I know I'll be able to do it. Right. So I think that, being able to wake up in the morning and like do my morning routine, I have a really, simple but consistent morning routine. And I can share a couple of those things with you. I worked with a health coach myself about a year into my business because I started to get really it was that classic situation where I was so excited. I was location independent. I was time independent. And then I realized about 9 months into it that I was just like sitting all the time. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I really don't move very much anymore. And in my previous business or career, really, I had been most recently anyway, in a position where I was doing a lot of speaking and a lot of presenting in offices all over locally. So I was literally moving and standing for most of the day. So I transitioned to this, laptop lifestyle, but the ugly side of that, right, is you're so sedentary after a while if you're not really intentional about not being sedentary.
Definitely. And it's a shock to the system. I mean, the struggle is real that you're talking about. It's something you completely don't expect. And you're just like, oh.
It does. It comes out of nowhere. And you have this moment all of a sudden where you're like, oh my gosh, I've been sitting for the last 9 months. So I hired a health coach at that time to really just kind of take the habits that I knew I wanted and that I had sort of had before, but make them work with my new, my new routines and stuff. And she was amazing. I was so happy to work with her. One of the things that she did for me, which is the simplest thing in the world, but it was worth so much, was that she finally got me to commit to drinking 22 ounces of water in the morning when I first woke up. So it's water before coffee. I'm a big coffee drinker, as you can see, I have it with me. But when I first wake up in the morning, or when any of us wake up, we're dehydrated. We need to rehydrate. And I always knew that, but I didn't do it. So when I started working with her, she's like, okay, here's one of the things that's a non-negotiable with me. If you're going to work with me, you're going to do this. And I was like, okay. So I started doing it, and it was amazing. After even the first week, the amount of energy that I had in the first half of the day, skyrocketed, because I was just hydrating and getting my brain working well and getting everything working the way it needed to in the mornings. So that's my big non-negotiable. Every single morning I wake up, and before I'm even out of bed, I drink a 22-ounce thing of water that's sitting on my nightstand. I think it's easier to drink room temperature water too. So that's part of why it works well
Same
for
here.
me.
I've got that right here.
Yeah. I feel it doesn't go down as easy when it's cold. So
yeah, no.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that is my non-negotiable. And then the other one, and this is going to sound maybe a little cliche, but it's true. So is gratitude. Some mornings I go through my entire bullet journaling process, and part of that is gratitude. and listing out 3 things, that I'm grateful for. But mornings where I'm really busy and I'm not going to get to my whole morning routine, that's the other non-negotiable. It's the water and then the gratitude. So even if I just sit with so water first and then coffee, and then when I'm sitting with my coffee and I take those first few sips of my coffee, when it's like super hot and like it's like the best couple of sips in the morning.
Smells so good. Yeah.
Yes. I do this thing, which is basically habit stacking, which I learned from James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, where I taught my mind to automatically, as I'm taking those first few sips, think about a few things that I'm grateful for. And those could literally be something that's like sitting in the room that I have that I'm grateful to have. Or very often I think about my husband because he's usually milling around at the time getting ready for work. So something that he did that I'm grateful that he did, or, he, told a joke and I'm grateful that he's a funny person, that I married a funny guy, So whatever those things are, my mind goes to that because I trained myself to think about that when I take those first few sips of coffee. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, I guess those are really my 2 things that I do that I think really set me up well. And they're connected very much to my business, because, right. You know what I mean? They set you up for a good day. Right.
Yeah. Well, as you were sharing, like how you've set up your life and business, it did really strike me how much they overlap and how the same, you created your business to really support your life and your habits. And then like the structures overlap, like you said.
Right.
My brain is not being very articulate today, but in my head, I can see these structures and how they're all like this. And, what the beautiful thing is that you're supporting other people through your work to create it in their lives as well. And so you've got like this beautiful kind of circular approach going. You have it in your life, you help other people get in their lives, and then seeing as you help a lot of coaches and online providers, I'm sure the work they do is helping other people. So I just think
absolutely,
you've got this amazing circle of success going, and
yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. I think about that all the time, actually, really, especially since I do work with a lot of health and wellness coaches and relationship coaches. I mean, the work that they do and it's like the entrepreneur ripple effect, the things that we do help them to reach the people that need them. And the work that you do is similar in that way. I mean, we really are, the work we're doing is helping those helpers connect with people who actually like really need them and really need their support and their guidance. So it's great. Excellent. Beautiful.
We get to help create the change by amplifying the change makers.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Great work.
Yes. Well, love it.
Thank you so much for sharing all this valuable information with us today. I know personally that I'm already feeling some Pinterest account anxiety and shame. Quite admittedly, I'm going to jump off today and go and revise things because it's not an area I've targeted personally. You've given us so much actionable information and strategy today that I know I can't wait to go implement it. And I'm sure everybody else is feeling the same.
That's exciting. Yeah. I would love to see you do that. And definitely like send me your link when you do some little optimizations. And I'll let you know what I think too.
I will. And I was on Jana's blog, by the way. I'm going to put her website up now so that everybody can see your website before we wrap up. And she has also amazing blog posts. So if you want more Jana outside of the checklist and you're not quite ready to work with her directly, visit her blog. It's like this podcast. She has a blog post I saw on how to use Pinterest to promote your podcast. Yeah, so you better believe I'm going to be looking that one up. And there was just some great titles. So make sure to check that out.
Thanks.
And thanks again for joining, Jana.
Thank you for having me.